The skills gap in America is growing every day. Together, we can change that by inspiring young people to consider a career in the skilled trades and giving them the resources to do so. We are Desk Free Nation, and this is Trade Up, a podcast about recruiting in the skilled trades and the stories of those who've made it a success. I'm Megan Bedford, your host. Let's get to work. Hi, this is Megan Bedford. I'm your host of the podcast Trade Up. Today, I am with a very special guest. Her name is Carly Carey, and she is a plumbing apprentice out of Minneapolis. Formerly an English teacher. She left teaching about a year and a half ago and decided to become a plumber when her entire family has been teachers. So it's a really cool story. I'm excited to be here with her. And she goes by the Plumber on Instagram. So if you're an Instagram follower, she is awesome. All right, I'm sitting here with Carly today. She calls herself the Plumber on Instagram. And I was so excited to come across her profile because where she got me, she had me from English teacher to plumber. So plumbing apprentice, which I just think is so cool. So Carly, thanks for being here today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much thank God for DMs, right?
Right. Right. This is when social media is a good thing.
Yes. Thank you, Instagram.
Yes. So tell me about your journey. How did you become a plumbing apprentice from being an English teacher?
Yeah. So I kind of pondered that and reflect on that frequently because I never imagined I would be. It's a whole new world for me. I come from a family of educators. So I grew up and my dad was a teacher. My mom was a teacher. And when I graduated from college, it felt like a very natural transition, become a teacher. And so I taught and I coached lacrosse because I was a lacrosse player in college. And I did that for 10 years and it was amazing. I loved it. But then the world is a huge place and I kind of realized I wanted to try something else, but I didn't feel that I had a ton of hard skills. I had my teaching career but I wanted something totally different. And I started to do research online and try to figure out like what jobs are needed out there. Like, what could I fill? What roles could I fill? And I was watching This Old House one day, which I love This Old House.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's amazing. Very informative. And my boyfriend said, what about the trades? You love to use your hands. You love to be like active. And it was like, I had never once thought I could ever do that or be that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great idea. Let me think about that. And in my research, I had found that people in the trades, there aren't a ton. I mean, that is something that was desperately needed. So I decided on plumbing because back to my research, I love to research. It was talking about, are you a creative thinker? Can you think outside the box? Can you problem solve? And I was like, yes, all those things I'm really good at. So then I tried to figure out how to become a plumbing apprentice. It was really
which is hard, right?
Yes, I very convoluted, and I didn't really know where or how or when or who do I contact. But I knew that there were two routes. There was the union route and the non-union route, and I shamelessly cold emailed like 20 shops in the area, and one guy got back to me and he was like, this is super cool. I can't really help you, but best of luck. And he was awesome about, kind of pointing me in the right direction. And then my current boss reached out to me and he was like, we got to meet. So we met and he told me about his plumbing experience. And he sort of had a similar experience. He was a journalist. He was a writer. And then a plumber came into his office and fix something that no one else could fix. And he decided he wanted to be a plumber too. So that was kind of a cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So we met and I really felt comfortable with him. And I met a few of the guys.
How long ago was this?
So this was a year and a half ago. So this was so COVID happened in March of 2020. This was like July or June of 2020.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, so we met and he was like, how about a 2-week trial period? Because this is a huge change for you. So let's just like make sure you're into it. And after like a week and a half, he offered me a full-time job and here I am a year and a half later.
So how big a shop is this that you're working at right now?
So this is a shop with 3 licensed journey people, and then 3 apprentices that work with them. And then we have our boss, he's a master plumber. And then our guy who coordinates all of our scheduling. And so they're also 2 master plumbers in addition to the 3 crews of 2.
Okay. So you took the job.
So I took the job and I knew nothing. Like, to give you some context, I had like built a birdhouse with my dad when I was like 15, like whatever, like very minimal. And I learned a ton and I felt overwhelmed then. I sometimes still feel super overwhelmed. Like, how will I ever know all of this?
Yeah.
It feels like a different language sometimes, but I just have to remember, be patient with yourself. You don't have to know everything. You just have to be able to ask questions when you're not sure and you're going to make mistakes. And that was a really hard thing to realize. Like, I'm going to mess up.
Yeah.
I'm going to mess up. Yeah.
Especially coming from a career that you're so comfortable in. You've been doing it for so long. Now you're completely out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. That's been a huge transition. And that's something that sometimes I get home and I'm like, oh my gosh, it just doesn't feel the same as teaching. And it doesn't, because you're right. I was like a pro, like I was super good at teaching and it was easy and I didn't really have to think about it. And now, like, I feel like I'm an infant trying to do things. Like, if it's the first time I'm doing so many things and it just feels like I have 2 left hands. But I can't believe I'm doing it. I'm very proud of myself.
You should be. It's awesome. So tell me about like the training for other people that are watching this that are interested in entering the trades. Like, obviously this shop has a system in place for Apprentice, right? Like, so tell us like about a day in the life of Carly.
Yeah. So one thing I do love about it is every day is different. There's, I can give you like a snapshot of a day, but it's so different from another day. We get to work at 8:30. I know what jobs I have. Let's say we have 4 calls in a day. That would be a really busy day for us. And, the first call might be, there's a leak in someone's ceiling and we're trying to figure out where that leak is coming from. And it might be, like last week, it was a fitting in the ceiling had broke. And every time, it was just constant water dripping down, so we cut open the wall, there's stuff everywhere. And we find the leak and we're like, well, we don't have time to fix it today. So we'll come back in 2 weeks or whatever, and then we might go change out a kitchen faucet. And then the third call might be, fixing a drain pipe or whatever. It's just, every day is so different. And some days go by really fast and you're like, wow, the day's over. And other days are hard. Some days you're like, how are we going to get this done? But we somehow miraculously figure it out, which is kind of this amazing thing about the trades is you have to figure out how to get this thing done.
Yeah. So tell me, okay, we're going to break it down. What are the best parts about in your life, like the changes that you've made becoming a plumber? What would you say are the best parts about being a plumber right now for you?
For me, I think the possibilities of the future are like super exciting and sort of, really motivate me to learn and know and absorb as much as I can. Cause I hope to be a business owner sometime in my life. So that's really exciting and motivating to me. So just the prospect of the future is one of my favorite parts about being a plumbing apprentice. I also think like learning something that you never knew before. Like I had no idea how any of this worked and just absorbing that new knowledge and being able to, I go to people's homes, not so much with COVID, but the few times I've gone to people's houses in the last few years, they're like, hey, I have a question about like the, whatever. And I like shockingly know a lot of the answers, which is very empowering and cool. I also think just how active my job is, I watch and it's like my rings close every day. I'm just moving and standing and working and sweating. So I really like that part of it.
Yep. You're not sitting all day anymore.
No, not at all.
Especially did the homeschooling of COVID just put the nail in the coffin?
I only did online teaching like that March, April, May, and it was brutal. And people who are still teaching, teachers right now, they are saints. We do not deserve them. They are incredible. But it was really hard. And I think for me, teaching, I was best when I was with my students and there was like that energy of people together. And online teaching was super hard. And I knew I wanted to get out of teaching before COVID. And then with COVID, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah. All right. So tell us some things about plumbing that you didn't expect, that you were just like, oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah. It's way less gross than I expected. Like, I think one of the misnomers and one of the just like the lies we tell ourselves is plumbing is just like gross. And there are gross things, but there's also gross things about being a teacher or like anything. There's gross parts of it, but it's way less gross than I thought.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like there are some times where you're like, okay, wow, I got to regroup. That's nasty, but way less. It's way less than I thought. So that's a plus. One thing that I didn't know about plumbing beforehand was how grateful people are that you're at their home and that you are going to leave it in a way that is better than when you found it. Just the gratitude that these people have that you're getting their house up and running so they can like wash their hands or use the bathroom or whatever. And I just think it kind of restores some dignity for some people, which I really think is super valuable. I also think one thing I learned from plumbing is just how creative our minds are. Like there's so many times when, you have these fixed objects, you have these fixed things that are there and you're trying to figure out how to make this thing work when there are these things you can't change. So like, how do you work around these fixed things to make something new, if that makes sense? And one thing I've learned just personally is just like how much more powerful I ever thought I was. Like, I think that becoming a plumbing apprentice has just made me realize like we are capable of way more than we give ourselves credit for.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really out of your comfort zone, I'm sure, at first.
So, I mean, like I was talking to my parents today about my whole choice, my new career. And it was just like, I could have never imagined that this would be my life. And I'm super excited that it is. But it really is like, sometimes just like, oh my God, astonishing. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about being a woman in the trades because there's not a ton of women plumbing techs. And you're in an all male shop, right?
Yep.
So was that intimidating at all?
It was definitely something I thought about. I think initially I was like, oh, that's fine. No big deal. Like I'll be all good. And luckily I work in a shop where all the guys are like incredible. And I've never felt anything but respected and like embraced. So I feel very lucky about the particular shop that I'm in. Like, I know that's not every woman's experience in the trades. So I just feel like, the universe like dropped me in the exact right place. I believe that. I think one thing that is difficult is just, there's not anyone to really talk about my experience with. It's just, that's one thing. It's a bit lonely sometimes, just not having, that's one thing I do miss about teaching is that built-in feminine energy at my work. And that just doesn't exist for me right now. But what's exciting is there are trades women in the Twin City area that are reaching out, and there is a community. You just have to work a little bit harder to find it. Yeah. And to that end, I mean, I found a lot of female plumbers and trades people on Instagram. Honestly, like that's sort of become this like little corner of the internet where I'm like, oh my gosh, there are people who kind of have the same, experience or are the only woman in their shop or whatever. So that's been pretty cool.
That is very cool. So what would you tell a a young female right now that's in high school, doesn't really know what they want to do. They're good with their hands, good at problem solving, that they're interested in the trades. What kind of commercial or, what would you say to them about becoming a plumbing apprentice?
Yeah, I would say that if you are interested, you are wanted, you are needed, you are valued, you would be a great addition for so many shops. So I would say, even though there aren't a lot of people that look like you in the trades, that does not mean that you are not wanted and needed.
Yeah.
Because I think that this, it takes time for the world to catch up to, I guess, the current times or whatever. But I think we're at a moment right now where people are realizing, like, I don't have to do things that everyone else has done. Like, I can do something different.
Totally.
At least that's for me. That just because you've not seen it before doesn't mean it's wrong or doesn't mean it's not supposed to happen. So I would say, if you are a young person, if you are a young woman that is interested in the trades, this is your time. Seize it. If you reach out to shops, they will want to have you come check things out. They would want to talk to you, or go talk to your union, what reps or whatever. Like, do not be afraid. And just because you talk to someone doesn't mean you're married to the idea. Like, you can just go check it out and see if it's for you. And if it's not, then you go try something else. But like, this is the time. Tradespeople are so needed. This is the time to explore that. Yeah.
And it's recession proof, right? We just saw that with COVID.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yes. Now, I'm like, I will always have a job. More work than I could ever do.
Like being, I feel like your generation's different, like the generation that, that I grew up in, even older, is like, no, you come into work and we do what we tell you to do and blah, blah, blah. Whereas your generation, you're writing your own script and you're really saying, no, these are the things that are important to us. Do you feel like that is something that is easy to do in your current job? Like, if on flexibility and things like that?
I do. And, I only can speak to my experience with my boss, but there was a time where I was like, listen, I don't think this is for me. Like, I don't think plumbing is for me. Like, I'm missing this human connection part that I'm not sure I'm getting. And he was like, well, what do we need to do to keep you here? Like, part of your job can be going into schools and figuring out how to get kids involved and making, getting more women into the trade. So I think, like, asking for what you need, and asking for what will make you successful is something that is important, and is something that, like, my boss wanted to keep me at his company. So what did he do? He met me where I was to make it beneficial for both parties, which I think is awesome. And now I'm like, all right, let's do this. I'm way more invested. Heard. I felt heard and I felt valued, and I felt like we were not even compromising, but just by verbalizing what I needed, he was just like, cool, let's just create this other part of your job that's completely unrelated to the nuts and bolts of plumbing.
I think what a lot of people don't realize in the trades is that there's such a shortage right now in the trades of techs. And when you found somebody that you jive with and they look like a great fit, these business owners will do anything to keep you because you're such an asset. And that's important to remember. Like, you're able to come in there with your voice and kind of say, these are some of the things that are really important to me, in order for me to do this job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think when you are in short supply, you have a little bit more power, and not in a negative way that you're going to, abuse that power, but you just have a little bit more say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is so cool, this journey.
It's wild.
What would you tell parents, Carly, because you come from a very educated family. Everybody's been teachers. Obviously, college was probably pretty important, something that you thought you were just going to do. The cool thing about the trades is you don't need to go to college, right? You can go to trade school. You can work directly with a shop and start making money right away. So what would you say to parents, that are out there?
Yeah, I would, sometimes I think back, I worked at independent schools, so they're private, and the whole thing was every kid goes to college, every kid goes to college, every kid goes to college. Sometimes I think about that and I'm like, that's that to me, I'm like, what a disservice that this notion that every single person has to go to college.
Yeah.
When college costs unbelievable amounts and people leave with crippling debt. Like, no, not everyone needs to go to college. I would tell parents, that's a great question. What would I tell parents? I would tell parents that we all need to keep an open mind. And that's one thing that I think my parents were like, whoa, that's so interesting. Tell me more, like,
which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're totally supportive and they love it, but I think there was some initial shock, like, okay, you're going to do what now? There was a little bit of not even resistance, but just like, where is this coming from? But I think it's really important as parents, like, you've lived your life. Now you need to let your child live their life. And if this is what is right and good for your kid, you need to let them do what is right and good for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I'm not a parent. That sounds really hard to do. Like, that is a hard thing to ask of people. But I think the trades are way overlooked and so vital. And some people they don't want to go to a 4-year school.
Yeah.
And someone like, I went to college and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but everyone I knew went to college. That's just like the thing. We just went to college and that was that. And I'm grateful I did. But sometimes I think, wow, what if this was just an option? Like, what if someone had come to my school and told me about the trades? I mean, I knew nothing. I, of course, knew plumbers existed, but I knew nothing. And so I think that we do a disservice to our students and to our communities, really, when we don't show people all the options that exist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you kind of went in a way where you were actually doing your own research on these shops. But I think, imagine if we could expose these young kids early on to the trades and expose, let them know how lucrative and fun they can be.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was recently this summer, I did a Girl Scout camp where they get a whole bunch of trades and with this, there wasn't plumbing, but it was a carpentry trade unit for this Girl Scout camp. And these young people were so excited to build and learn and do all these things that, like when some of the kids were like, I want to be a contractor when I'm older, like things that I like just learned what that was, And so, I think that we sometimes, I don't know if it's kind of selling our students short by not showing them the whole picture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I see in your future with your teaching background, you're definitely going to play a role in some young kids, getting them interested in the trades. I can see
I hope so. That would be very full circle. And that would make me very happy. Yeah.
All right. What advice would you give to a shop? So people that are wanting to hire young men and women right now, what would you say to them? How to attract young people? Because there's a lot of shops that I think are pretty antiquated in kind of their ideas. So is there any advice that you could offer them?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is exposure. Like, I think you have to get in front of kids. You have to somehow make these trades visible, and the kids have to see it. They have to see it to know that it exists, and they have to see it to be able to picture themselves in this world. For sure. So I think shops have to do what they can do to be seen. And I don't really know what that would look like, whether it's like at a college fair, showing up and having a booth and just getting kids to talk to you. Yeah. I used to go to college fairs and represent my school, and I loved it. And now I'm thinking, wait, I could do that for plumbing.
You can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you just have to be visible, and you have to get that on kids' radar screens, because the messaging that at least I as a student and I as a teacher was peddling was college, which for some people, that's amazing. That's their path. Sure. But there's a lot of people that's not where they want to go or what they want to do.
Yeah. And what about like flexibility? You went from having your summers off to now you're working year round. So like negotiating kind of that flexibility of work play for you. How has that been?
Yeah. I thought I was going to be like devastated by missing my summers and my 2 weeks at Christmas and my week at Thanksgiving and my 2 week spring break. I thought it was going to be like devastating.
Yeah.
But it's not. Like, I only work 4 days a week, which is amazing. That's sort of a thing that
awesome.
I know my boss is like, if people want to work 4 days a week, they can. He wants to like keep us, plumbing, for as long as we can. And just like 5 days is a lot on your body. So we can work 4 days, which is honestly better, I think, than having 2 weeks off at a time. I love working 4 days a week. So that's been a big plus. Also my shop's really great at like, do you want to take 2 weeks off? Just let us know. Like, I feel like I am not stripped of vacation time. I totally feel like I can take time off when needed. And I only work 4 days a week. So I have a 3-day weekend every week.
Awesome.
Which is like, amazing.
Yeah. So do you feel like when you I know you'd like to become your own boss down the line, but right now, do you feel like there's a clear path for you on kind of your trajectory in plumbing, what you're doing and kind of where, like how much longer you'll be an apprentice, how many hours you need?
Yeah. So I'm a year and a half in, and it's about a 4-year apprenticeship. So I have to accrue, I think it's like 1,500 hours. I could be wrong. It seems like it's a lot of hours.
Every state's a little different, but yeah. So I have about another 2.5 years of that. And then I will take my big state test. It's like a 6-hour test. And then once I pass that, I will be a licensed plumber in the state of Minnesota. Then I'll need to take another city test to be licensed in Minneapolis, St. Paul. They have like their own test you have to take to be certified there. And then after that, a year after that, I can take my master plumber exam, which I will want to take. Sure.
Yeah. And so, hopefully in about 5 years, I'll be a master plumber. Five and a half
amazing.
Years. Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
You're getting paid to do it, right?
I know, that's the thing. It's like, I'm getting paid and I get benefits and I get, dental and healthcare and all this stuff. I'm getting paid to like learn a skill that I'll be able to use forever and make really amazing money. And it's just like, wow, that is like, it's a true gift. It's a true gift. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything, one of the things that you said before we started recording was how much customers appreciate a woman coming into the house. Can you tell me about that a little bit more?
Yeah. I think there's almost a sense of relief when there's a woman alone in her home and she's greeted with, the journey person and myself. That I work with all men, as we've mentioned, but there's just this like, oh, okay. Like, just like they're just a little bit settled, and people have verbalized that. You can just sense like just a sigh of relief. But people seem to really appreciate a female. And I also think there's almost a novelty to it. They're like, oh my gosh, you're a plumber? Like, what? I've never seen a woman plumber, Right. I had this experience in a coffee shop a few weeks ago. As a plumber, you're always looking for a good bathroom because a lot of places I'm always looking for a good public bathroom.
Right.
And I'm at a coffee shop and I'm asking them like, do I have to buy something to use the bathroom? And they're like, no. And I said, I'm a plumber. So I'm always looking for just the best bathrooms around. And I went and sat down and was drinking coffee. And this woman walked up to me and she was like, did I overhear that you're a plumber? Like, I don't even care if you're very good. I just want a female to be in my home. And like, that would be amazing. So I think there's this desire for that. Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. Women who are like in their 60s and 70s have said like, oh, I would have loved to do that, but we weren't allowed back then. And this sort of like, real appreciation for women in their 60s, 70s who, are a little envious just because they weren't allowed. Like they were told, you can't do this. So I feel like it's, I'm doing it. I'm proud to be a woman in this, but I'm also proud like for these women are so excited to see this, that it's like, this isn't just for me. This is for you also.
I think everybody's excited. I think the business owners that are male are excited. I just think it's a really exciting time where there's literally zero barriers to entry anymore. Yeah. And it's really all about aligning yourself with the information and then getting connected with somebody that you feel comfortable with.
Agreed.
But I know that there are so many shops out there that would value a young person coming in and really taking them under their wing and teaching them. And I'm so thankful that you landed in this place, because I feel like a lot of you did something really great though. You went in and you interviewed them, like just as much as they interviewed you, to make sure that you found the right fit. And I think that is some really good advice.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because it has to fit and it has to feel right and it has to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I remember the first day of going to work, I was so scared. I mean, I was just like having oh my gosh, what do I even do? Like, this is so crazy. And the guys were just super chill. Like, I just feel very lucky where I landed. And I think like my boss, I met my boss and the other business partner who runs the scheduling, and I felt really comfortable and good with them. Yeah. And knowing who they are now, like, of course they would only hire good people, people that they felt aligned with. But I'm just so grateful that is true. I mean, I can work with any of the 3 plumbers and I feel total, like, they're great. They're amazing guys. That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like I won the lottery on that regard. Yeah.
That's so great. It's such a great story to hear. Is there anything else that you want to share with young people interested in the trades or shops that we didn't talk about?
I just think the trades are the unsung hero of our communities, truly. I mean, I have some personal values that I hope to align behavior with, and one of them is dignity. And I do think that, being able to leave someone's home better than they found it restores some dignity for them. And I think that part of what I like to do is give back. And sometimes I think, am I doing enough for like the people I live around? Teaching, you feel that because you interact with kids every day, and it feels there's a instant reward. Yeah. But when I'm able to step back and look at what plumbing does, it's not glamorous, it's surely not glamorous, but it allows people to live comfortably and cleanly and well in their homes. And I think that that's true for all the trades. And I think that's just what an amazing gift you can give back to the community that you live in, and get paid for it and make good money. It's like a win-win. So
the pride too, like you get to walk into a house, actually fix something, and then see it fixed, and then walk, like that's some satisfaction right there. You know, like there's not a lot of jobs that you can do that. You can actually see the result, see the problem, fix it, and then see the result and be like, I did that.
I know it feels good. Days where I feel like when I've really done stuff, I'm like, wow, that felt amazing. It's truly, it's like a high, it's a plumber's high. You're like, yes, I did that. And these people called us and now they're going to pay us for this thing we did because they couldn't figure it out,
You have friends and family, like when you're home, hitting you up for like, hey, Carly, got this problem.
Yes. I get like emails like, hey, sorry to email you, but we have 19 questions about the new house we bought. I'm like, come on, lay it on me. Let's go. Yeah. It's actually so funny. My phone, I would say probably twice a month, someone that I maybe talked to recently, or sometimes people from the woodwork. I'm like, I haven't talked to you in 3 years, but yes, I'll help you with your water heater question.
Totally. It's so cool. It's like, you're like woman badass empowerment, like so cool.
I'm trying. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I got a few questions for you outside of, one's in plumbing because I'm interested. Do you have what's your like funniest or just like, oh my gosh, plumbing story that you could share?
Oh man. I mean, the first one I'm thinking of is like a mistake that I'm told you make one time and then you never, ever make again. And I do believe this is true. So the main stack where all the waste from a home goes through into the sewer, we had to cut it open and put a new piece of PVC with a Y coming out because we were adding a fixture. And I did not tape off all of the bathroom, the toilets, the sinks, everything, to tell people do not use.
Okay.
So I'm like working underneath this thing, and someone uses the toilet, and it just goes everywhere. And that was the worst thing I'd ever done at work. And I was like embarrassed because it was just the worst. It was the worst. But I'm told that plumbers make that mistake and then they never ever make it again. And I believe that.
And that's not so bad. It's not so bad.
It's not so bad. But that one is just like it's like a visceral reaction where I'm like, oh my God, that was terrible. That was pretty horrible. Yeah.
All right. So beverage in the morning. What do you drink?
Coffee with almond milk.
Almond milk.
Yes.
1 cup or 2?
2, hopefully not 3, because then I get a little bit jittery, but I usually try to cap it at 2.
What's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
Oh man, I have a lot of favorite things. I would say my favorite thing to do is go on walks with my boyfriend. We love to walk and I love to cook. I'm a huge foodie. I love to cook.
Your boyfriend must think you're such a badass.
He does. I think he does.
I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He's like, I can't believe you do this every day. This is amazing.
It is.
Can't believe it.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
A podcast or book that you read this last year that you just loved?
I am a total podcast lover. My favorite is Crime Junkie. It's a crime podcast. I'm obsessed. I love true crime. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't get enough. But Crime Junkie is a favorite, as well as Ear Hustle. Ear Hustle is a really cool podcast.
I haven't heard of Ear Hustle.
Oh, it's amazing. It's it's an NPR podcast, I believe, where this woman would go into San Quentin prison and interview different inmates. And one of the inmates was her partner with the podcast. It's amazing. It's beautifully done and in very good storytelling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then your favorite place that you've traveled to?
My favorite place that I've traveled to, I think we have a summer house on Lake Superior. And I think that's my favorite place because it's
awesome.
I've been going since I was a little child, and beautiful memories, gorgeous scenery. It's amazing. So that's my favorite place.
Lake Superior is so cool. I went there the first time a couple of years ago. I was just blown away.
It's stunning.
So beautiful.
It's beautiful. I know. But I saw that you're from Vermont.
I am. I'm from a ski town, Sugarbush.
Okay. I grew up in Western Massachusetts. So I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, I would go up to Vermont. We would go ski at Stowe all the time.
No way. Yeah. So I'm from Stowe and Sugarbush are both in central Vermont. They're like a half hour apart. So.
Okay. I lived in a tiny town called Cummington. Have you ever heard of it?
Is it in, I haven't heard of it. Where's it closest to?
It's between Northampton. Do you know where Northampton is?
Yeah.
It's do you know where Pittsfield is?
Yeah.
It's a tiny town between those two.
Awesome. So how'd you end up in Minneapolis?
So I grew up in Massachusetts, and then my mom's from Minnesota. So she tricked my dad to move back here, maybe 20 years ago or something, or 15 years ago. She promised him a big flat screen TV.
Oh my gosh. And he did it.
Well, sure.
Do you think the winters are that much worse in Massachusetts?
It's way colder.
Yeah, it is a lot.
It's way colder, less snow, but I don't remember ever being this cold growing up in Massachusetts.
Yeah. It is that wind, that bone cold.
Yeah.
I mean, Vermont was freezing. I freeze my butt off the majority of my life. And now I'm in Colorado, which everyone thinks is cold, but it's not.
I feel like
when the sun comes out, it's so nice.
You're Yeah.
So, you have all those great lakes around you, though.
I know. That's we walk around the lakes all the time. That's sort of our happy place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this was amazing. I think your nonprofit is so cool. I'm so excited that it exists.